Welcome back, gentlemen. My apologies to anybody who listens for my raspy voice. It's not meant to be for sexiness. It's for because I got a cold going to Disney, so I got Mickey's magic coronavirus or whatever the fuck. I don't know. It sucked, but so we
That's the
had
wrong line. It's supposed to be for her pleasure. What do you, I mean,
exactly,
you missed that
exactly.
punchline, man.
My wife always says when I'm doing things like this and I'm talking to people on the phone, she'll be like, "Why are you using your sexy voice?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just talking." But I guess we all instinctively do it. We talk differently when we're talking to people versus how we're just talk normally. But anyway, so we had an interesting weekend in Atlanta. I feel like this was what Daytona used to be, and it seems like the majority of drivers are saying the same thing. After last week, you couldn't pay me to watch a drafting race. But I will say, like, I was highly entertained by this weekend's racing overall. Like this, I don't know if it's the size of the track or this type of pavement, what they do different in terms of the car and the trucks, but the product was way better than what we've gotten. It could just come down to the tightness of the radius of the corners. They've got they're in the turns much more often than they are at Daytona and Talladega at this point with this package. So I don't know how they solved that, but this was definitely. Blake told me not to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. If I had my way, I would pave Texas like this, and I would just shelve Daytona and Talladega altogether because they're not even worth watching, and just
Well,
give you
then come
give
down to
you four races
Alabama
of
and cut that tongue out.
this. So, um, so we had a lot of stuff leaving Daytona we didn't get into that came after. They still haven't had the appeal, so we'll start there. 19 car. Let's rewind back to Daytona. The 19 car was significantly faster than anybody else, and now we know why. They got a level two penalty for a manipulated spoiler, which is an issued part. They haven't had the appeal yet. Don't know when that's going to be, but they are appealing. I'm curious what they're going to say because all the parts are issued to you by NASCAR for that part. So if how is yours off, but the other three cars in JGR are not, and the two co-team cars that with 23 or three now within 2311 are not. So clearly Cole Pern Jr. there, uh, James Small was tweaking with it, which doesn't really surprise me that the 19 car is the one that got busted for a penalty if there's going to be one. Back when it was James or Pern and Truex and the right rear dilemma where they'd always blow out a right rear tire to kind of cover whatever
Always.
things they were doing. They'd always go until they blew a tire and destroy the quarter panel to hide whatever manipulation they were doing. They were the most penalized car during the lug nut penalty phase before they stop doing that stuff altogether for always running three lug nuts on after a pit stop and stuff. So we'll start there. Any surprise there from y'all about them being penalized? I mean, I know when you and I were watching it, Blake, you said there's no way that car's legal.
No way. I mean, when you got an entire car length plus probably what about a quarter panel,
Hmm.
you had
Okay.
entire car length plus a quarter panel distance between you and second place.
Yeah.
And when normally we're talking, they're usually win the pole by like this much,
Yeah.
and yet you won it by an entire car plus more. So yeah, there was no doubt in my mind there was something illegal about that car. Now I don't know what exactly was manipulated with the spoiler personally.
Yeah.
I don't really understand because obviously it met the right height, or they would have caught it immediately at the track. So I don't know what exactly they found wrong with the spoiler personally, but obviously it was enough to make the car insanely faster on its own. I mean, it was
Shorter.
it was probably two car lengths ahead of any other Joe Gibbs car.
Yeah.
So that just to me screams illegal. So
Yeah.
I'm not shocked. I did read before we started that they are because of the appeal not being heard till sometime in March. They are James Small will be at the track this weekend because they're not going to put him on suspension until the appeal is heard.
Yeah. I know they changed that rule. That was one of the new rule changes they came out with this year is that when you're being penalized, you can forego it until the appeal is heard. So, I mean, which makes sense. I mean, you need as much time as possible to build that chemistry with this new setup and combination they got going. So, I mean, I'd do the same thing there. Um, Chris, any thoughts on that?
I'm not. I don't think I'm. I don't think I'm surprised at the penalty in and of itself. Other than an explanation would be nice. We really don't know. Which I know they're probably not going to give one until the appeal's heard. But
Yeah.
I brought up to Blake earlier, talking to Blake. What the hell's taking so long? When have we ever seen an appeal take this long? I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm with you. I'm curious, like why are we not hearing
what's the
an
holdup?
appeal for,
It.
4 weeks in?
I will say that there's been appeals a few years back that were a couple weeks because early in the season, so it really doesn't matter. Now, if you're coming up on the playoffs and something like this happens, you have to expedite it. But where it was race one, so there's no real rush to appeal it outside of getting your crew chief back, and they're subsidizing when that happens. So there's no real rush really to
Yeah.
have to
But
do that, in my opinion.
well, other than I mean, Alan brought it up a little bit. It's a new team. You want to get that chemistry built between the team members, the driver, the crew chief, spotter, all that shit. So why get in the middle of getting into that groove and then pull the crew chief? Why not just get it done and over with now and
Yeah.
move forward? It was
I
kind of
don't.
my point. I mean, you're
It
early enough in
might
the
be
season to get the bullshit out of the way.
it might be NASCAR's discretion on when the appeal is heard, though.
Well, they've got the board, the way the appeal system works, they've got their the NMPA panel or whatever. I would think, if you've got this large conglomerate of people that are eligible to be the appellate panel, I'm not sure what takes so long. Like, I thought that was the whole point of having this giant pool of people so you could hear these things rapidly. You just go through and select people, and if somebody's not available, you replace them with somebody else. So I agree. I think it's kind of ridiculous. It's going to take like a month to be heard for something. I would love for them to come out and say why, but whatever.
Yeah, we won't know why until it happens, though.
So, so then we get to Atlanta, and I guess we'll start with the truck race. You know, Kyle Busch was basically playing with his food, as a lot of them said, because he's got all the experience there. But the big thing that stood
He
out,
looked like Dale Earnhardt out there.
yeah, the big thing that stood out to me, besides just him making moves the way he wanted there, was um, I would say idiot of the year is that uh jet dryer truck driver blowing all that sand in the open side of the cars. Like, what an
Uh,
idiot. Like, I get you're doing what you're told, but do we really have zero common sense? And you're driving by, these trucks have no side windows, which at a speedway, I thought they always had them so that you could keep the air from coming in and lifting the cockpit. So I was surprised. I guess I didn't realize the trucks at Atlanta didn't have it in their speedway package.
I
Um,
think every race is a no side window with trucks now. I think there's not really much cabin pressure as it is because it's such a small area.
yeah,
I think that's what it is.
but
Yeah, and I don't know that I'd place that on the driver of the jet dryer though. Who I mean, as a part of the cleanup process
yeah.
that that stuff has to be blown off the racetrack. Who made the fucking decision to park them there?
No, no, I agree. It's like the NASCAR
Yeah,
race director as a whole. Like, go ahead and blow that,
uh,
stay dry off there. We're just gonna leave them parked right here.
yeah.
I think it
Don't
was,
even.
who was it that got out? It wasn't Heim.
Uh,
Was it Day that got out? One of them got called to the hauler last week. He's like, I want him to come to my hauler this week. Explain that. He's like, I got out of the truck, and I'm like, puh, 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 spitting all this stuff out because it's got blown in his helmet and everything. It's ridiculous. Which I was explaining to Blake. It's not just that it got blown into the cabin all over the driver. It's you've got all these NACA ducts that suck air in to cool them off. So you just
yeah,
clogged up all those filters. You just clogged up all the filters that cool the brakes, that cool the oil coolers. Like, you just blew all that shit in all
Yeah,
those.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised it didn't mess anything up.
Yeah, I am too. I was expecting it to really jack some stuff up there. But that didn't happen. So,
So with the truck series, it was what was the 17th or 19th straight race that they didn't have a green white checkered.
yep,
They're showing the other two series up when it comes to
yep,
that.
yep, that was impressive. That they could race back to green like they knew what they were doing. That especially for you when you consider this is usually the one where the idiots run over each other because they're young and inexperienced. So that was actually a nice surprise to have that opposing, to have that happen differently. So then we move into the Xfinity series, and basically again, Austin Hill, like Kyle Busch, playing with his food. Like these guys do not know how to stop him. Um, you know, they kind of like what happened on Sunday, rather than working together to beat him and then settle it amongst themselves, every time they would gain position, they'd get so hung up trying to beat each other, they didn't get anywhere near him. And so Hill, once he got up there, you just couldn't get to him. And he's gotten very good at managing those races. Like,
I I am eagerly waiting when they let him run an Atlanta race in a cup car just to see
yep,
if he can bring it there because if he can, that's going to be good for RCR when he replaces whether it be Austin or Kyle
yep,
because I mean it's obvious he's in it for the long haul at
yep.
RCR because he's had offers from other teams and he's stuck in there. So when he comes to Cup, he's going to be a formidable force on all the drafting tracks.
Well, I think he kind of like Allgaier, when you're with a good team and you win races on a annual basis, you qualify for the playoffs on an annual basis. If you can't get in a quality cup ride, I wouldn't just go up there and pull a Corey and just ride to ride. Like I would rather I get the the money is less at that level by a significant amount, but from a mental standpoint and your positive energy, I would rather be celebrating wins or top fives every week than running in the back and being like, okay, we're getting closer, and you don't know if you'll ever get there. I'd rather, if I'm going to take that jump, I want to get in something I know can compete inside the top 20 on a weekly basis. And I think that's what he and Justin Allgaier do. They've made it a career so far out of being down there and being successful while doing it.
And that's one of the big things that got me when they. I understand what Kenny Wallace was talking about with Corey LaJoy.
Yep.
Other than if you're taking the TV deal because you're going to make more money there, why the fuck wouldn't you take a truck ride then? Because
Yeah.
go run the truck, then you can go do your fucking TV deal. You're still going to make the money doing the TV, but at least put yourself in a competitive ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think him saying that that team losing the crew chief. I mean, basically, you're saying the crew chief was the only thing that was making that truck fast,
And that's not
which,
true.
yeah, which I think is bullshit. That truck's been fast for a long time.
Yep.
But I think it's had that crew chief for a long time.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean that's
We'll
but
see. We'll see who's in it now.
Emmerich,
Hemrick.
yep,
We'll see. Probably not this weekend. I don't think Hemrick's that great of a road racer, but uh, we'll see it. The truck's in Vegas or Phoenix, one or the other.
be in Vegas.
Uh,
I don't know about Phoenix.
so we'll see. We'll see around that time whether the 19 still has speed or not. If it does, then Corey made a huge mistake.
yeah. Well, I will say, his debut in the '01 at Daytona was impressive. He
And that debut actually is he's getting a lot of sponsorship looks, and he might be able to do the whole season now.
Yeah, I read that it opened up some stuff for him.
Well, according to Tommy Baldwin, they're not running this weekend.
No, he had already laid out some different ones. I guess Atlanta was the second one. I don't know what the full schedule is yet.
Well, I'm just saying if they were looking at the possibility of bringing it in, I think they would have had to have already had it announced. And
Yeah,
yeah, Tommy Baldwin said they're
So,
only running one car this weekend,
yeah.
on at least on
So
DVC.
yeah, which that was a good listen this week. Tommy Baldwin, them and DVC this week. Uh, I finished that one, but with Noah Gregson. So we'll see what happens. Corey got taken out kind of early this week. I I would like to see.
Well, when he got taken out, he hadn't really done nothing all day. He was
No,
It was after the halfway point, and I hadn't seen him all day.
no, and the funny thing is that's where he almost got his first win up there, and he got pinched in the wall by Chase, 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
uh, I was kind of expecting more from him there based off of how they ran at Daytona and how he's run there in the past. So I was a little disappointed in terms of like I don't know if they just missed the setup on the car or if they went too much towards Denny talked about it in his, and when I was making my picks for this weekend with my dad and my uncle in their game, and we were talking about it, I figured we were going to see one of two things at Atlanta. This is the spring race, so it's going to be cool, and we're going to go from day toward the evening, and that's what happened. So it's going to start off fast and only get faster. Where in the summer, when we come back there for the playoffs, it's going to be extremely fast in the fall, but it's also going to be really greasy and hot, which is going to make handling come into it even more, which with the compressed corners should make for an even better show than what we got this time around, um, and change up the racing even more. So I think that'll be good. But that's kind of what I was expecting to see was, a faster race where they could kind of hold it down a little bit more this round, and they're gonna have to do more lifting when we come back when it gets hot. So, but the track again showed that it's aging rapidly. You can tell.
Well,
Um,
that was the whole what they were trying to do. They put a lot of rocks in the aggregate, and I think they even put old asphalt in with it to make it age faster. So
yeah,
it's doing what it was supposed to. I know everybody's hooked on this track now, and I did enjoy the race, but I want to see what a 670 horsepower race would look like. Would love to see it
yeah,
because I think it would be phenomenal. They'd probably bring a hard ass tire,
yep.
but if they did the right type of tire test and long enough ahead of
Hey down,
time,
Wally.
I think it would be wonderful. But it would depend on Goodyear's ability to create a tire that would sustain the G's and you know.
Yeah. Well, this weekend's race, I didn't feel like, so in Daytona, everybody was riding around part throttle, not really pushing it, and that's because it's a wider track, it's a bigger track, so you've got more time. Where this one, they basically from the time the flag dropped, it was 100% all the way. And you never really saw them ride around and single file string it out for a long period like they used to do at older plate races, and nobody passed each other. It was really good. I really enjoyed the passing. They were able to line up and make moves. They were constantly dicing with each other. Um, and Blaney's move toward the end when he got, tagged by Hocevar, spun, saved it, which was reminded me of Kyle Busch in the Clash when he had that chocolate splash car back in the COT days. Basically, same thing. That was a hell of a save, first off. And then you would have thought, okay, he's grinding away the front splitter, so it's going to change the handling of the car. He still managed to get all the way, like, came dicing his way back up through the pack, which was extremely impressive with this car, which further highlights like there's something seriously wrong with what they're doing at Daytona with this car because you saw that if you stick the right package on this car, it can drive the way it used to.
Well, this is the same package. The thing is, and I think it was Adam Stevens said it in the press conference. At Atlanta, the first stage, everybody was all out because they could make the entire stage on fuel.
Yeah,
And that was the first time since we went to Atlanta on this reconfigured track that they rent an entire stage without a caution. Now, stage two, it got kind of crazy,
yeah,
and there was wrecks and wrecks and wrecks, and they didn't have to save there because there was the wrecks and they kept coming down pit road. So that's another reason that you never saw it. And then stage three is the same way. So the reason that we never saw the savings was they didn't need to because they were always getting cautions at the right times to where they could go all out. So
Well, not only that, but I think that the bullshit that they, I think it was me and you, Blake, that talked about this. If you have 100% rule, I understand the people that are in the pack at Daytona and Talladega. you have to lift, you have to ride part throttle because the car sucks up. But there's no reason why you can't have the telemetry on the first to second place cars, especially when they're side by side. If you don't have that thing matted, black flag them.
Yep.
Everybody can see that telemetry. If you're not running flat out, and because it is the most infuriating thing to sit there and watch those guys drive. Everyone's like, that's so impressive. No, it's not, because they're not pushing the car.
They're running
They're
three
not
wide
pushing
at 55%
themselves.
throttle.
Yes, yeah, it's not. It's friggin' insane. It would solve a lot of the problems. I think it would help with some of the racing that we see at Daytona, because yeah,
I think you're going to have a harder time getting that to work than if you just took the stage cautions out and just said, okay, when we drop the green flag, the cautions are going to happen when they happen. That you're going to award stage points for those two races, Talladega and Daytona, at these points, and you're going to race to there. But you're not going to be able to save fuel anymore because you're not going to know when the caution's coming. It could come from a simple mistake or it could come from a big one. But now you have to race all out the whole time because now you can't save fuel till the next marker and the next marker and the next marker. You just have to go.
well, but like I said, also, I mean, everybody can see. I mean, you can see everybody's information. Every crew chief can see
Yeah.
what every team's sitting there doing, and you can't tell me that NASCAR doesn't have access to that and can't say, why are the first and second place drivers, why are you guys only running 65%? You have one more lap to get it to 100%. If not, we're black flagging both of you.
Yep.
That would solve the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would make them pull the field, which means everybody else is going to have to use fuel, but it's going to solve the just riding around side by side. It's going to, I think it'll force the cars back into a handling situation, especially if they would take a little bit of the downforce away. But when the car's not running 100%, you're not burning the damn tires off it either.
Yep. At Talladega and Daytona, if you were to take out those stage cautions and you shorten that spoiler, I think you're going to get to where you want to be, that you could have a product that looks like Atlanta, where it's enough separation
Yep.
where they can make moves. I'd still like to see a little more separation, but the difference was you never saw them all out three wide the whole time because the runs were too big. You couldn't do that. You had to take the runs when they came, and they were making those moves, and they were phenomenal moves. I mean, they were some really amazing passes that they made. They'd push up, pass, and go around. And yeah,
I mean, it looked crazy. I mean, you can see the runs forming.
mhm.
I think was it Hamlin that was saying he almost wishes that they would. I think it was Hamlin, who was one of the ones I was listening to today. He wishes that they would show the race from an aerial view because they're so zoomed in on the cars that you can't see the runs form. Which we've all watched it enough, even with the
I believe that
we
was a
we
teardown.
yeah, it could have. Yeah, actually, it might have been the teardown.
Yeah,
But
the teardown, they said the required camera view for those races should be a overhead shot the entire time for at least like the first 20 laps because you're seeing so much happen at any given time. And I mean, I agree, the TV is awful about only showing what's happening at the front, but
Everybody
there's so
thinks
much
they got to
happening.
zoom in on two cars. You don't.
Yep.
You go back and watch races from the early 2000s, late 90s. It's you got 12, 15 cars in the picture, and you watch Fox and NBC now. We don't know what Prime and TNT are going to do, but you watch Fox and NBC now, and you get two, maybe three cars in the shot, and it's like, zoom out, guys. We know you have the capability.
Well, that, and we know that when it comes to like the TV partners for the most part have been the two standard ones have been pretty bad for a while about the way they cover the race. So hopefully the TNT, Amazon will force them to up their game just in the same way that once Amazon got Thursday Night Football and showed how they could do stuff with all the Amazon intelligence stuff about the player analytics and stuff. Hopefully that'll force the other TV partners to step up their game. So I don't think there'll be much change for Fox this year, but I would
yeah,
expect NBC to learn from what they do in the midseason and try and adapt some of it. And by the time we get back to Fox in the spring of 2026, hopefully they've made some changes.
I
So
I I just think a lot of it is kind of forced because if you also go back
stop,
and you look at the
stop.
camera angles that we used to see when back in the 90s,
Mhm.
they don't want to see in the stands empty.
Yeah.
I think that's a big reason why they stay zoomed in, because even you look now, the shots where they do show anybody in the grandstands, it's zoomed in and you can just see one group of people because that's where there's a
Yeah.
group of people sitting.
Yep.
And it's like, at this point, we know nobody's showing up at the damn racetrack. We don't give a shit. Show us what's going on the racetrack. I don't care who's in the stands. I don't care who's not in the stands. I want to see what's going on the track.
Yeah, and I don't feel like you can be upset about the stands being empty when they have self-admitted that they've driven the sport in such a direction towards entertainment that it's a must. We know we said it earlier in the season. They tried to turn the sport into a must watch, not must attend, by cutting things like the Home Depot, race day by Home Depot, the tire changing things that Goodyear would do, the hospitality events, all the different things that they used to have. Well, you got rid of them all. So of course there's nobody at the damn track.
Yeah,
Except for
I
the
know. I know.
we can't go to Homestead because they fill it.
Yeah.
They can't. They
I,
fill Phoenix, but they don't fill Homestead.
I it aggravates me probably more either you two because I mean I think Chris especially you're a couple hours from Vegas. You know, you see Atlanta when they do show the stands, and I know a few guys that were there this weekend. They said it was bone dry. There was hardly anybody there, and that aggravates the crap out of me because Atlanta took Kentucky's race, and I know for a fact there were more people showing up for Kentucky than there is currently for either Atlanta race. Atlanta's so exciting, yes, it has gotten exciting, but there's nobody showing up. So
I mean, especially.
why can my race not why can I, my racetrack not get a race back?
I mean, especially this year. You could you imagine boating to Kentucky this year?
Yep.
Luckily, by the time we usually have a race, it's the creeks are bone dry.
No, I know. I was just throwing it out there
Uh,
because all the
yeah,
flooding that you guys got
yeah.
going. Take a trip down the river, go see a
But
race.
it's infuriating. You're going to that track, and yeah, I mean I understand they're trying to get gambling in the state, and that's one the way supposedly they're trying to make it happen. But when you're not filling the stands, let one of those races go to the other track you own, the only track you own that doesn't have a track.
Normally I would agree with you, but since that race produces better racing than Daytona, I'd say we take away the Daytona 500 spring opener and give that to Kentucky.
Well, it's not a part of SMI, or I would agree.
We've already decided
S
that,
I got it. I got it. Hold
and then
on.
you
I
take
got
the
it.
fall race and make that
S
the Daytona 500. Like
S
that's your Super Bowl.
SMI can give COTA to IFC for their Daytona thing, and that race that COTA is taking from SMI can go to Kentucky.
Yep. Yep. Honestly, based on what we've watched so far, I would get rid of the Daytona 500 as a spring opener at Daytona. I would move the Daytona 500 to the cutoff race going into the playoffs. Make it the night race at Daytona. Starts in the evening in the afternoon and races into the night. It would be a Super Bowl level event because it's that big of an event anyway. It's the cutoff. Who's going to win this marquee event? Who's going to cut their way into the championship playoffs?
You have a lot
And
more viewers that way.
you would get more viewers. It's better racing because it's hotter, slicker. You're going to have more build up for it because of where it is in the season. And on top of that, when you get to it, the um the prestige of it would come back because it would be a one-off race and just get rid of the first Daytona race altogether and just open it in Atlanta because you get a much better race. But
Yep.
by doing it that way, you would get a much you would get all that season build up. Okay, where we build up all season to our biggest race before we start our playoffs. Move the Daytona 500 all the way to the end, and it's the cutoff. But the weather impact in the summertime down there is much more favorable than because it's so hot, the track dries so fast. And in the spring, when it's wet, it's very hard to dry that track. So you more often than not, we get impacted by rain, then we lose the race. Even though it's got lights, it just takes so long because it's not warm enough to help the asphalt dry.
Yep.
So, when we did our schedule, our dream schedule, it did not because we hadn't seen the racing as much. It didn't occur to me, but I would amend my dream schedule to do that. I would ditch Daytona down to one race altogether. I'd get rid of the summer race as the Pepsi or Coke Zero 400. It would become the Daytona 500, and I would get rid of Daytona as the season opener altogether. And
I'd
just
go with that.
well, and for speed weeks, it's not like they go down there and do it anyway. I would just save all that stuff for the end of the season. We opened at Bowman Gray, which they said they're going to go back to for 2026, it looks like. So that's good, in my opinion. I thought it was great racing.
Why not open in Charlotte?
Yep, open at Charlotte.
Run Bowman
That
Gray and then open
that
in Charlotte.
weekend this year it was 20 degrees, so I don't think that's a good idea.
But yeah,
The fans don't show up anyway, so who gives a shit? You're in a race car, you'll be plenty warm.
I'm not moving the Coke 600 from Memorial Weekend ever.
No, I wouldn't.
I didn't say the Coke 600. They go there twice, so.
Well, one of them's in the playoffs, so that's never going to change.
All right. So let's see.
There we go.
NASCAR officials are going to NASCAR official. So we had the duels less than 200 feet from the, or less than 100 yards from the finish line. Nobody in front of them, wrecks behind them, caution. They took a lot of heat from it. Come to Daytona 500. We're in the back end of the freaking track. Massive pile up, no caution. William Byron lucks his way into another win. Yes, you got to be in position. The seas parted, but that's not the problem. The problem is the inconsistency of the caution. Then we go to the Xfinity race this weekend. They do the same thing. Let them race back to the green. The drivers are like, well, are we going to start racing back to the flag or not? Like, what are we doing here? So they said, we need you to be more consistent. NASCAR said, fine, that was on us, our mistake. So now we got what probably was going to be a hell of a finish coming to it. Hocevar had pushed Bell out there. He had, chucked.
Which I'm sure Chevrolet just loved.
Huh?
I'm sure Chevrolet loved that.
Yeah. So.
Oh, he didn't have an opportunity to get to Larson though.
Yeah, he did. He had a gap.
I think he probably turned himself across Blaney's nose if he would have tried it.
Yeah. He's doing it all day. Why not there?
Yeah, that's true. But in terms of like inconsistency or inconsistency, so now they throw the caution. So now that's two really good races they've ruined with a caution. That second duel got ruined, and the Atlanta points race got ruined or robbed of great finishes. I'm okay with, to me, I'm okay with the caution because I'm so tired of them. I made a tweet mention to Bob when Bob Proctor said, Elton Sawyer said after the meeting that their number one priority is finishing the race under the green. I thought the number one priority was executing the race safely first and foremost. I thought driver safety was the number one priority, making sure that all 36, all 40, however many competitors on the track in a given weekend come home safe and alive. I thought that was the number one goal and that everything was about safety. Clearly, they don't. That's not because that's the first thing, which as Elton being a former driver, that was not only idiotic to hear it come out of his mouth, but just very surprising that, the show is more important than driver safety.
I do have to agree with Denny Hamlin, though. That did need to be a caution.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is we just need to get to a point where
Wally,
if it's a caution on lap one, it's a caution on lap 500.
Yep, and that's what Freddie Kraft has been saying for the
Whatever.
last year and a half, 2 years on DBC. And several fans have said, a condition that's unsafe to race is a condition that's unsafe to race. It should not be subjective to, well, how does it impact the show? So if you want to make the priority finishing the race under green, then you need to have unlimited green, white, checkered attempts, which is just going to cost a ton of money. I don't think for the sport.
I think we just need to go back to what we did for what was it? Probably 60 years and stop with the green, white, checkers. For 60 years we if the caution came out 3 laps to go, well, whoever's leading wins. And Mark Martin wins the 07 Daytona 500, and Kyle Busch wins the 22 Daytona 500.
The Daytona 505 or whatever. Yeah.
No, at 500 miles, Kyle Busch was winning.
No, I agree.
So
Parker Kligerman would have won the Xfinity race last year.
Yep. I mean,
it changes so many outcomes. It just It's like one of my favorite phrases. They're manufactured, and we're the only series. NASCAR is the only racing series that does this crap. IndyCar doesn't do it. F1 doesn't do it, and
F1 tried to do it one time. It's how Max Verstappen got his first title and robbed Lewis Hamilton of his eighth. And as a result, they had massive backlash, and that race director
yep,
got fired.
yep.
So they're a super
So
purist sport, and they weren't going to have that crap.
Because honestly, in my opinion, it's not destroying what could possibly be a great finish. It's ultimately destroying, in many uh, instances, who was deserving to actually win the race.
Yeah.
yep,
Well, Blake brought this up, and I hadn't put a whole lot of thought about it, a whole lot of thought into it, but I've thought about it probably the last 3 or 4 days. Is you sit there and you tell us you cannot, uh, when you throw the stages, we have to count caution laps because then we don't want it to affect the distance of the race. But you'll go into overtime and extend the race at the end to try and
mhm.
make it a better show. Come on, that just you sound even more idiotic than you guys are already proven to be.
Well, I think if we went back to no more green, white checkers, and the race ends when you hit that lap marker, and if that means it ends under caution, so be it. We didn't have a bunch of races ended under caution on a weekly basis back in the day before we introduced green, white checkers because the drivers knew if I do something stupid here,
I
then
definitely don't have a chance to win
I
now.
definitely don't have a chance to win it or finish where I wanted to win. Once they started getting green, white checkers, they started piling into each other at the road courses, piling into each other at Martinsville, Bristol, etc. Because they're taking the gamble. If I bulldoze my way through here, I'm going to get another chance to move my way up through the field, and sometimes they do. So
Yeah,
if you take that option
as long
away
as I
from
don't get
them,
screwed by it, then
yep.
I got another chance.
So if you take that option away from them and force them back into having to do the race the right way, then it will self-police itself. It will take care of itself if you go back to that overall. That's the point. So, um, anything else you want to talk about with the caution inefficiencies?
uh, I just I like I said a minute ago, I think that they should go back to no green white checkers. It just no, and it's not
He's
because
better looking
Larson's
than you,
the
man.
issue. I'll just go like this.
There
Uh,
you go. Just put the hat
it's
on her.
there you go. So it's just I think there's gonna be people that bitch, but at the end of the day, it is like they say for the stage break. It's like Chris said. I said if you're wanting to run to the distance, so it was what was that race called? The uh something 400, right? Well, we ran 400 and I think 5 miles. So
Yeah, I said that. I told
yeah,
Blake, I said at this point you might as well just call it the Am Better 400, whatever the fuck we decide.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
yeah. So I
Well, and
just
again, NASCAR has decided, they decided a while ago, before Jim France, it was Brian France that said, we want to be like the NFL. That's where the playoffs came from with the TV partners and everything. But the one thing they forget is you don't see the NFL, the NHL, the NBA like sit there and say, well, what could have happened? Let's just add a couple more minutes on the clock. Like,
yeah,
oh, they
no,
were on this drive. They
that's
were
soccer.
about, the Chiefs,
yeah,
Brady was about to make this comeback. And so now we were gonna,
That's
and we
you.
left,
You
we
got
lost a
you got
potential great
soccer on
play.
your mind.
Yep. So like, oh, they were
Uh,
about to make this drive down the field.
I,
They were going to come back. They were going to win it. Oh man, they ran out of time. Let's put another 30 seconds on the clock and see what
the
they can do. You
the
you
last thing I'll put on this is if they're if they're definitely wanting to do green white checkers, they'll never go back to the way every other racing sport is. It They need to make a rule that if you're ahead of the crash, it's race back to the checker flag. Behind the crash, you're frozen.
I think that works at a lot of places, but you run into danger when you get to places like Martinsville, Bristol, Dover. You're going so fast
Well,
that you're talking
what I
15
forgot
to
to
20
say
second
is
laps.
if like put a line on the back straightaway,
Yeah.
like they did when they start to do that with the green white checkers.
Oh, with the
Like
trucks,
before,
yeah, yeah.
no.
Oh, the trucks had a line. I remember.
So before this happened to Kyle Larson, I remember at Dover. That's how he lost to Jimmy Johnson this way. The caution came out after they passed the line on the back straightaway on the green flag lap for the green and then coming to the white.
Mhm.
They changed it to you have to make the white. So with the checkered flag coming to you, this would be on the white flag lap only. If you're past this line, you're racing back. If you're not past the line, the race is over.
Well, I understand that, but I think that puts you kind of in the same boat of what I was saying, where then guys are going to be pushing each other to get to that line first, and you're just going to end up with the same thing. Where if you just take it away altogether, then they lose the incentive to run over each other because they have to race back all the way, or you lose all those positions. You're not going to get a chance to re-rack it if you get spun out, go put four tires on it, and try to go again. You have to finish.
I
And the big thing I don't understand is if you look at it even from a last lap point of view,
Mhm.
if a wreck starts in front of you, why on God's green earth are you trying to blow through that wreck as fast as possible when it's the last lap anyways? Let them all wreck, and then you're going to get those positions from them anyways because you made it to the start finish line. As long as you get your car back around the racetrack and you cross the start finish line, all those people finish behind you. So why take
Yep.
the chance on even piling into the wreck? Why are these idiots trying to drive through a wreck?
Yep.
Throw the caution and end the damn race. Period. It
No,
doesn't need to be extended anymore. We don't need to have the green white checkers. Put it back to the scheduled race distance unless we have rain. And then we end up with the shortened races, but that's been part of it forever.
mhm.
And uh and just be done with it. I like me and you brought up a little bit ago. It's going to get rid of a lot of those problems. You're not going to have these idiots going and causing unnecessary wrecks because
Yep.
you're it's not going to do me any good to cause the wreck because I might get caught up in it and I'm not going to have another chance at this. So let's take
That and
the finish we can get.
like to another point, the more you take away, like NASCAR is constantly chasing that perfect race for every race. Every race can't be the perfect, oh my God, that was the best race. That's just not how
they
racing
want
works. It never works
they
that way.
want Darlington 03 every race.
And you just
Yeah.
can't have that. That's not a natural, that's not the way racing works. But the bigger problem is it takes and it deteriorates the value of those exceptional races. When you see that, it diminishes it a little bit each time because now you build up this false expectation that every race should end that way when it's just not possible. The circumstances that day are always unique. The tire reacts differently, the temperature of the track, the weather conditions, headwinds, tailwinds, the abrasiveness of the asphalt. Like you never know what you're going to get. So if they would stop trying to manipulate the outcome, which is what they're doing, they're manufacturing a finish every time they do it. If you would stop doing that, you would get more exceptional races because you're going to allow things to play out naturally and you're going to allow those ones to stand out like Darlington's '03, the Keselowski, uh, Ambrose, Kyle Busch at Watkins Glen. Like you didn't even need to manipulate things to get to those points if you just let them
Yeah.
unfold.
Yeah, just
Well,
let it happen.
and especially my outlook on the bullshit package that they have put together for the drafting restrictor plate tracks, whatever the hell you want to call them. I don't I have a hard time calling them anything but the restrictor plate tracks. But go back through history and watch the battles to the end at Talladega and Daytona. Granted, you didn't have all 36 cars in a friggin' pack, but though there was always 2 to 4 cars that battled each other all the way to the friggin' end of those races because the
Yep.
draft still takes effect, but it's showing the people that showed up, had their shit together, had the best cars of the day, are the ones that went and battled it out to the end.
Yep.
Yeah, once we got restrictor plates back in the early '90s, there was always, like you said, 2 or 3, 4 people. Like I remember vividly, like Davey Allison, Morgan Shepherd was all over him. Um, '93 you had Dale Jarrett, I believe. Was it '93? Dale Jarrett. he passed Earnhardt with a couple to go, and
Dale show,
you
yeah.
had Earnhardt and three other cars sitting there, and then 94, 95, you had Sterling Mullen, holding off three or four cars. So, I mean, it was like that all the way through the 90s, and then you put after the 2000 race where Dale Jarrett basically was unpassable. They decided to put the roof fins on and created the insane pack racing that everybody was like, "Oh my god, this is awesome!" And then we haven't been able to get away from it since.
Yep. Yep.
When before the racing was just fine. So,
Well, let's see. Anything else from Atlanta you want to talk about in terms of the racing itself?
well, we gotta clear up some
Yeah, yeah,
social
let's
media
talk about
rules.
your
So everybody says Kyle Larson went up, he blocked, he sucks as a race car driver. He's not the best in the world, like they all say. Well, he he was cleared, everybody. He was cleared for a moment, and then he said car high. Let's play the audio
Yep.
there,
Yep.
Alan.
Here we go. Oh,
Free to go. Still there, Corey. You're clear. Before still your health.
it's told clear already.
Still there. Still there. Tight to you. Clear, clear, clear. Still there. Still there. Still there. Still there. Still there. You're good. Reckon behind you. Keep coming. Keep coming. Launch it down.
So okay, so
So,
spotter obviously cleared him several times, but also told him,
well,
"Hey, there's
the
still
clear, the first clear was clear of the 20.
yeah."
That was coming. The audio starts coming off of turn 4.
But so let's look at this. So inside of HMS, I think all four would agree not one of them's a good teammate to the other than maybe Bowman. You've got and I'm not expecting them to. They're all alphas. You've got Chase Elliott, former champion, Kyle Larson, former champion, Byron, contender, but won plenty of races now. Bowman won plenty of races. Like, and Dale said it multiple times, like when he deals with his teams at the Xfinity level, he's like, my only request is don't hurt yourself to help your teammate. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's how most of these guys race now anyway. So I don't understand the problem. Now, Kyle Larson's not responsible for making sure Byron doesn't get wrecked. That's not his problem. He's trying to win that race.
Yep.
And there's been plenty of times where Bowman, or not Bowman, Byron has wins that he wouldn't have had otherwise had he not screwed his teammate, which he's done numerous times at this point. He screwed Bowman last year, winning the Daytona 500. You know, he he's lucked into several wins where Larson was clearly the better racer, and at Darlington when he won over Logano in that throwback car, like it's silliness to me. And the Byron fans always like to complain and blame, the Larson fans and the Larson drivers, but the stats don't lie. Larson has accomplished things with Cliff in his career in a significant order of magnitude faster than even Jimmy Johnson and Chad did, and they're the gold
Yep.
standard in the garage. So,
And I told you during the race, Byron will drop a teammate faster than a $2 bill in a strip club.
yep,
It's insane, and I argued this with our buddy Kevin, and it's insane that Larson. I think I saw Larson push Bowman, or not Bowman, Byron through a couple sketchy areas throughout the race, and then uh, Byron will drop down a lane and just leave him, or Byron will get behind Larson for like a turn, and then go high or low to pass him. And it's like no, never helps him for longer than a half a turn. It seemed like it.
yeah,
He is a terrible teammate. If you're supposed to help your teammate, he is terrible.
yep. They're the
What I mean,
perfect, and I don't have any problem with what they're doing. I mean, I think they're racing how you're supposed to race. I think you have got what you've got going on with Penske is unnatural, but it works very well for them. Where those three guys are selfless in their sacrifice all the way until like the last probably 20 laps of a restrictor plate race or a drafting race where they work together for the betterment of Penske racing, you know.
and
and it works for them a lot.
And I think, I mean, I know Blake will probably like this comment, but this is something I've been putting a little bit of thought into and waiting for the perfect conversation for this to come up, because I know there'll be a lot of people pissed about this comment. But I think the reason Byron doesn't help Larson, I mean, why would you not do what you need to do to get both of you to the front of that pack and then race it out at the end? Other than, I think Byron knows 9 times out of 10, Larson's going to beat his ass. Larson's just going to beat him.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to help him. I don't want us to battle it out at the end because he has the upper hand. I don't want him there because I'm afraid he's going to beat me every time.
Yep.
Well, the narrative last year was Byron had more wins in the next gen than anybody. Well, now Larson does.
Yep.
So I think that's got him kind of flustered when it comes to his teammate because he's got more wins in the next gen now, and it's got him bothered.
Yep.
But outside of that, Carson Hocevar didn't make any friends.
Yeah,
Nope.
that's where I was. That's where I was going to go with that next part of what I was just going to say, because I told Blake this morning. I said I really hope, and even Denny touched on. It was funny because Denny touched on it because I hadn't even listened to Denny's podcast yet. Just please don't do to this kid what they did to Ross.
Yep.
I mean, just don't. I mean, he the biggest issue that I see, and I'm really kind of sad because I think in the same podcast, Denny even brought it up, the fact of how much time Corey Heim is spending coming into his own, spending the time in the truck series. And I brought which was another thing I thought was funny because me and Blake even talked about that this morning. I'm impressed on how Heim is taking the time to get to where he needs to be, not taking the first thing that comes along and just moving straight to Cup. But I think that's the biggest issue with these guys like Hocevar. I unfortunately we saw it with Logano. We've seen it with Daniel Suarez. We've seen it with Eric Jones. Quit move. I mean, these kids are making these mistakes because you're moving them in too fucking fast.
Yeah.
Let them get the fucking experience, then move them in. I understand that they're that good, but there's, I mean, I understand doing a couple races like they're doing with Zilich that they're bringing in this year, but give him 2 or 3 years to get there. Don't just say, "Oh, well, he ran pretty good. Fuck it, we'll put him in a car next year." Quit
I
bringing
think
him
that's what
in.
they're going to do, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think you understand where I'm going with that. I think these
definitely.
kids are making the mistakes that they're making because you're not letting them get enough experience. Well, they've been racing since they were 8 years old. Okay, I understand that, but they also don't have the mental capability at 8 years old that they're now starting to learn once they turn 17 or 18. That critical thinking part isn't there. They still need to learn the critical thinking part as far as driving a car at 200 miles an hour with not just your life and your race in your hands. This affects everybody else around you too.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I just think of it kind of like, all right, Stenhouse is doing what Stenhouse does. Keselowski does what Keselowski does. Like, and these guys had more time to mature, but I mean, they're all, I find it hilarious only because they're blaming Hocevar like this past weekend for racing the way he did, but he didn't wreck anybody. He didn't dump anybody purposefully. Yeah, he hit Blaney at the wrong point on the track and spun him out, but he didn't turn him up and head on into the wall. He didn't,
He
he
did
hit,
make a lot of questionable calls though, like
oh
coming
yeah,
on the white flag. He ran 2 cars up the hill, an entire lane.
oh yeah.
I don't know how they didn't wreck it in turn one. That was insane.
Well, look, obviously,
But
it looks
I
better when
think
you survive the craziness of the things you cause, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, all those people who are pissed did make it back to the line. So I have a hard time blaming him for, he's gonna have to learn. He'll race them all the wrong way long enough that even if he were to like qualify for the playoffs, which I think we all talked about, I think we thought he would, that okay, so he qualifies for the playoffs. Well, you still have to survive and you still have to deal with all those people
yeah.
at the race each week, and they don't have to give you an inch.
No.
They can most certainly ruin your day.
Well, you can't say he didn't wreck anybody because he did turn Blaney.
No, he said that,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
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 it was an obvious accident.
yeah, but I think going back to what we talked about earlier, and I didn't want to bring it up until we got to Hocevar. I don't think Hocevar went down and pushed Larson. I think fucking Hocevar is trying to do the same thing to Bell that he did to Blaney. I think he was trying to get him out of the way because
Yeah.
then he knew with Larson not having somebody next to him, he was going to have the clear shot to get around him. I think he was just trying to move. He just hit him a little too early. He hit him before the entrance of the corner, so it didn't upset Bell's car the way he thought it was going to, like it did Blaney. Because I
Possible.
mean, he friggin' nailed him. I mean, he nailed him hard, and I think that was his full intent, was to hit him as Bell was getting ready to make that first turn, initial turn into the corner, and he hit him before the turn started, and it just launched him out into the corner instead of up the track.
Yeah. So looking at our winners list here, I've got our predictions we did, and I've been keeping track. So far, we're 0 for 0. We're sucking at who we thought was going to win places. But I will say, if Blaney hadn't been taken out by Hocevar and had to come back through it, I think you and I are sitting pretty, Chris, on our first race correct pick of the year, because we both picked Blaney to win Atlanta. And I mean, if he didn't have to start from the back, he had the car. I mean, the moves he was making, him and Cindric were about to decide it amongst themselves before that
Hey,
happened.
my pick was doing good till he blew a right rear.
Mm-hmm.
He was running second when he blew the right rear.
Let's see here. You had Mr. Gilliland, right?
Yep, he was
Yep.
running
He was
second
doing
when the
good
right
too.
rear blew.
Yep. So I've been keeping track of that. We're 0 for 0 right now, but we were all pretty close. You and I definitely close at Atlanta. So we're getting close. But yeah, who do we pick for COTA? Let's see here. I
I've
took
got Alex
McDowell. I took
Bowman.
McDowell for COTA. I'm gonna have to go back and question myself on what the hell I was thinking on that.
Well, that's another thing. He came back 6 laps to finish 13th at Atlanta.
Yeah, so that was awesome in itself, and I that's another byproduct of this track versus the other one, because they could get the separation. When they did wreck, it wasn't a 20, 30 car pileup or a 15 car pileup. It was a 1, 2 car pileup, which allowed you to keep racing. You didn't have these because they could get away from each other. They had more separation. It's why we need separation, so that you don't take out a third of the field when you have a wreck. So, um, let's see here. Blake, you've got Bowman winning COTA. Unless
Yeah, I'm regretting that.
Yeah, I think you and I are both regretting our decisions here so far. And then let's see here for COTA. What did you pick? You picked Tyler Reddick for COTA. I think of the three of us, Chris is probably going to come out on the winning end of that.
With COTA, they're going to run a softer tire that's supposed to have a lot of fall off. So I'm excited about that. They are running the shorter course.
Yep, we talked about
It's jumping from 65 laps to 90 something laps. So that's cool.
We talked about them needing the softer tire at the road courses, so I'm glad to see that they're going to run that tire kind of like we're running at Phoenix. Hopefully, that will allow for more passing, more wear, and better tire management. But I think also to that point, I think that's just going to make it play into SVG's hands even more. An advantage he was already probably going to have is going to be even greater. So we may very well just see it being mixed up between SVG and Zilich, honestly. Even though Zilich hasn't run a cup car before, if he's as good as they say he is.
I don't think it's gonna matter, dude. I really don't.
What's not going to matter?
With Village, I don't think it matters what car you put him in.
Yeah,
because I've watched him in I've watched him in the ARCA series. I've watched him in the Truck series. We've watched him in the Xfinity series. It doesn't matter what they put him in. And it's not like he's going in with experience in all these cars.
no.
He's just going out, and it's almost reminiscent of. I mean, we've seen drivers do it through the years. Kyle Busch was that way. Didn't matter what you put him in. Kurt Busch was that way. Didn't matter what you put him in.
Well, it
Up
reminds
until
me a lot of Larson's timeout year, where he said something stupid on the game broadcast, got lost his 42 ride, and then every dirt race of style he's entered, even ones he had never sat in, super late models, things like that, he won.
Yeah.
He went on the first time out. Like I think so if he's as good as he think they say he is, which he does look to be that way.
Well, I had a guy come through my line at work, and I was wearing my Kyle Larson polo, and he said, "Who is that?" Which I found hilarious. But I told him, and he said, be on the lookout for Connor Zillage. I said, yeah, he's going to be really good. He said, my son raced with him in Trans Am, and he said that kid's unstoppable. Him and one other kid, he said, I can't remember his name. He says between them two every week, and nobody else was anywhere close. He
Yep.
said that kid is the real deal. Just be on the lookout. I told him, I said, well, that's who I'm following in Xfinity this year, so I'm sure I'll see it. But this guy, he said this kid is phenomenal, and I mean, we saw him at the Xfinity race at Watkins Glen last year. He was absolutely untouchable.
Yep. Which to the point of Zilich. So another thing to know about Zilich, in terms of like just overall like the support that's going to be built around him. So he's running Red Bull this weekend. It's the first time Red Bull's been in the sport in what since 2011. So we're talking 14 years in terms of being on a car. So that'll be a nice return. But this is also, if you're a diecast collector, folks, this is the first time that Red Bull's going to have a special finish on a car. In all of its time in the sport, they've never had a special finish. They've always been standard paint, nothing special. They didn't do any very, deviations or anything. They were just a base car. Well, this Connor Zilich's is going to be the first that they've offered in a liquid color or a color chrome, an ARC for the color chrome, and liquid and color chrome for the elite. So, that
And well,
as a collector for me, even though I got rid of a lot of my Red Bull cars, I'm looking forward to this because I think that Red Bull blue is going to pop really nice and be very different between liquid color and color chrome. And
well,
then,
you say that, but you're leaving a lot there to Lionel to screw up, dude.
oh, I'm not saying, look, Lionel can fuck a football like a monkey better than anybody I know. Like some of
Yeah.
Kyle Larson's cars when he was in the 42 that final year.
Oh,
Um,
that fade was terrible.
what I'm trying to think of which one it
It
was.
wasn't the
It was
final year; it was a Target. It was
no,
when the
not that. I
Target
mean, yeah, they messed that up.
big
It was the
time.
blue. It was when he was in the Camaro in 2018 when they first came out. They had which sponsor was it? Was it the Credit One Bank, maybe? So the car, the blue and the liquid color and color chrome were damn near identical. That doesn't normally happen. They shouldn't be identical because the treatment should change how the color, and the color was so dark you couldn't tell the difference between them. So I mean,
Well,
they do know how.
my
For all
my
the beautiful
my
cars I
biggest
have, they know how to mess shit up for sure.
my biggest flaw that they ever done on a Larson car was Dover of 2019. They didn't have any race debris on it at all. It was a
Oh yeah,
clean car with confetti on it. There was not one bit of race debris on that car. And
yeah.
it's like, talk about being lazy.
I don't know that Coke 600 win of his where you can't even tell it's a raced car sometimes is like that he won
There's debris on the front.
barely. But like again,
Yeah.
it's one of those like they missed a lot of the stuff. It's you almost can't tell that was a race win.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to your point, I mean Lionel can jack some shit up. So I'm cautiously excited because it's the first time we're gonna get a special finish. Blake, you tricked me into spending 300 and whatever.
You're welcome. I
So
don't mind spending your money.
I ordered the Elite Premier because it's Red Bull, and I ordered the liquid color and color chrome because it's the first time they're offering them in a special finish, and I think they're going to really pop. I think they're going to make
Well,
a billion of them because it's his first thing. And
the
then
the other awesome thing about this is it's an underlying thing, but it's hilarious that Red Bull's allowing it and Monster is still sitting down here going, "No, we can't. You're not
oh yeah,
paying us enough. You're not paying us enough to put us on, to do our diecast."
oh yeah,
Shut up. You are missing so much opportunity to have your logo, your paint scheme in people's houses for other people to walk in and go, "Oh, that's awesome. I'm gonna
yep,
go get me a Monster." So now people are gonna go walk into somebody's house and see a Red Bull car and want a Red Bull instead of a Monster because you can't allow a diecast manufacturer to run your logo on a car. It's completely stupid. Same with Coca-Cola. What are you
yep,
doing?
yep. Well,
Free advertising.
they're so
Free
controlled about their
advertising.
brand image, and hey, fine, whatever, to each their own. But it does cost you a lot in merchandise and in turn brand recognition. Some of them think they're too big, they don't need it. Others understand. I think it's great that Red Bull's going to be back in there. So I'm excited to see how he does this weekend.
I'm I'm kind of I don't know. I've kind of debated and gone back and forth. I'm not one on ordering new cars. I
Yeah.
just unless it's a race that I was at that Larson won, but they are gonna actually they put up for pre-order Corey LaJoie's Daytona car today.
Okay. I didn't see that one.
I'm kind of I don't know. I'm kind of struggling and debating on that one. I mean, it might sound dumb, but uh, just the steps that he's had to take and where he's at now. I mean, that might be a hard to come by car here. And
That was a good looking car. I like that car. That Take 5 oil car that he had for Daytona was a good looking car. And then I got an email today on the diecast topic for Thursday Thunder. What do you know? They're gonna do the Dale Jr. whiskey, Traveler whiskey with Algar and the
Oh,
gold
that's going to
36
be
pieces.
impossible.
That thing is gonna be like you're gonna see that car
You
go.
got an email today? I thought it was supposed to be an email tomorrow.
Nope, the email came today. I've got it pulled up right here on my desktop.
yeah,
Well,
I saw
Thursday
it
I
posted
haven't.
Thunder,
everywhere.
February 27th, 9 a.m. You got to be an RCCA member. They're only making 36 of them. Like this car might actually crash their.
Oh, they're going back down to 36 now.
Yep. I wish they would keep those consistent, but
Why not do 48? You can have a door number. Oh, that's why.
so I don't think it's worth $1,000, but I'm sure that the 36 people who ever get them will probably say a third of them are going to be flippers and they're going to immediately hit the marketplace at like some stupid number. So,
Mhm.
I got about 8 minutes unless you guys
yep.
want to keep going, and then I can maybe come back and join in. But
Well, so the last big thing I wanted to talk about was we talked about it last year a little bit. We were trying to pick like, all right, here's the new faces and new places. 2311 signed Corey Hyman, your buddy, uh, Little Hyman. So he's finally going to get a chance, which I thought you know, Denny said he's glad he's been able to do it. He's going to be a development driver for them. I think it's stupid that JGR is continually passed on him, just because of baby Gibbs and everything. So I think they're going to come to regret that decision to not pick him up because I mean he's clearly good. He wins continuously in the trucks, and any other Toyota TRD pipeline driver to this point would have already been accepted by JGR and brought up. Whether they keep them and use them correctly or not, they would have already been brought up. So
I had some serious questions when they made the decision to put fucking Brandon Jones back in that car instead of giving Corey Heim the
right,
opportunity in the
exactly.
Xfinity car. Like
So
what
That's not hard
you
though.
you you
It's
you
Menards is
got rid of
why.
it. You got rid of it, but seriously, you got rid of this driver that did not a damn thing, limited results for your team for your organization. Went over to Junior, didn't have any more success over there,
no,
and then you fucking bring it back when you have a proven winner in your truck for the third year.
yep. So
It's
maybe
that's a Menards thing, but outside of that, you brought Sawalich in
mhm,
and not Heim. That's the one that I'm keen on. You brought William Sawalich in over Corey Heim. That's the one that is the mind blower. Like what?
yeah,
And what is it? Taylor Gray they brought in the
Tyler,
54.
yeah,
Yep.
So you've got two guys that haven't really done shit that they put in the car over Corey Heim. That's what blows my mind over the 19 that or the 20. I don't remember what number it is, but the Brandon Jones thing that doesn't surprise me because of Menards. The other two is what surprised me.
yeah. So I'm curious where now that he's signed with 2311 as a development driver, I'm curious to what opportunities open up for him. If that helps get him in a JGR car at some point, like how you've got Almirola in the 19 now, if he gets in that car periodically, or if he and or maybe they partner with some other teams.
Honestly,
I think
if you want my take on it, my opinion with just the way Denny sounded, he made it sound like it's a 2 or 3 year program. I'd almost say that you're looking at the next driver of the 11 car.
I agree. I think that very well could be. Or maybe Denny moves somebody over into the 11 from his stable and puts one of them in like not I don't see him getting rid of the 45 of Tyler and taking him out of the 45, but maybe you get Riley Herbst moved over to the 11 and you
JGR.
pull Hyman in because
I
I don't see Michael Jordan and Denny getting rid of Bubba no matter what happens first off. Um I just don't see that happening. He's got way too many sponsors that he brings to their team, first off. So from a financial standpoint, it makes him very financially solvent. That's good. Bubba is a good performer. He races very well now. He's proven he can race and win. He can qualify for the playoffs. Last year, if you don't have a Harrison Burton, last minute win or a Chris Buescher, some of these last minute changes, Bubba
He
was
was in.
comfortably was in position to get there. So, ifs and buts, yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean, they had a better season last year, and just some things happened. And so you
Bristol
still got to win.
hurt him.
But I agree. I mean, I don't see Heim becoming the next 11 driver only because of the drama with Gibbs and JGR. But I could definitely see where Denny moves some pieces around and says, okay, I'm going to move Herbst out, who brings Monster. Well, Monster's already aligned with JGR easily enough. I'm not really losing anything there, but I bring up Heim and
I don't
Forgot
think
about
you can
that.
move. I don't think you can move Herbst. Remember the Herbst group?
I mean,
That's
maybe
not going
not.
to happen.
They're the
Maybe
ones that
not.
actually own the. They're the ones that actually own the charter. But yeah, I
That's
forgot about
not.
the whole. I forgot about the whole Heim and Gibbs bullshit.
Yep. So I mean, we'll see. There's definitely some options there. I'm just glad that a guy who clearly has what it takes is at least been adopted by a group that's going to do what they can to get him in a
Well,
position, and that's good.
maybe they're going to start an Xfinity team next year, and they're just keeping
They
it under
could.
wraps right now.
Well,
Yep.
and I was also saying, kind of looking at the direction that Legacy Motorsports may be headed. You may see Legacy Motorsports as a one car operation and 2311 being a four car team.
Can't can't do it.
All right.
Why
So
can't they
last
do it?
week, did
The
we
new
talk about?
charter agreement, you
Yeah.
cannot have four charters.
Yep.
The only people that have four charters are the ones that already have it. You can't
That's right.
he can't buy another charter.
Yeah.
No.
But
But
what I see
but
Legacy
maybe you
doing is
get.
possibly going to Dodge.
But you could another move that could happen. You get when the 11 frees up, Denny retires. What you said I think he said he only sees himself 2-3 more years max. So that would align with that plan. But I could see a scenario where Denny steps out. JGR likes John Hunter Nemechek. JHN moves from Legacy into the 11. Heim moves over to the 42.
I don't think he would
Or
do that to him.
maybe
Yeah.
not, but it
Danny
all
wouldn't do that to him.
maybe not. But I mean, you've got 3 years to see how they develop
Legacy,
now
yeah,
that
Legacy might
Johnson's
grow.
running Legacy. I'm not talking about Legacy now. We're assuming some changes in the next 3 years, which you mentioned the Dodge thing, so that's the last thing on the list. I don't think we talked about it last week, but unless we didn't tell me and I'll stop. But there was the announcement that Dodge
The
is
Dodge
looking
a bit.
potentially to return to the trucks.
They are returning for sure to the
Yep.
trucks
And then potentially to Cup. So we'll
in
start with the trucks.
28.
Yep. So I think trucks is easy in a lift because there's only 3 parts on the truck that are actually different by manufacturer: the hood, the front bumper, the rear bumper. Everything else is a common body. So that's easy enough. And they use, like you said, those Ilmor engines as a common component. So it's not like they have to go build a whole new engine. They already have V8 trucks. They didn't make this major EV push in the truck market. Easy enough for them to come back. The curiosity I have is if they do decide to come back to cup racing, well, they made this major push into the EV world when they decided they were going to turn the Charger and Challenger into these EV vehicles. And a lot of the car makers are backing away from the EV push. So I don't know first off, what platform are they going to bring in if they do decide to go cup racing?
Well, we saw
Will
the
it
new
be
Charger.
Challenger or
It's
the Charger?
Charger looks just like what it used to back in the Dukes of Hazzard days now.
Yeah,
So
Challenger.
that's a
But I got to
Charger.
bail. I got to bail, guys.
All
Yeah.
right, buddy.
Later,
Have a good
Chris.
night, man. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
General Lee was a Charger.
you're right. So yeah, I'm curious what platform they'll bring. And I thought when they were recording Brad Keselowski, didn't they say they left because of the direction NASCAR was going with the horsepower and everything? So I guess my question is, what changed? Is NASCAR, in
Yeah.
order to bring Dodge back in, looking at a higher horsepower option? Because Dodge was going, they've got the Demon, the Hellcat,
Okay.
and all these high power, their street cars have more horsepower than the Cup cars. So if that was their reason last time for not coming, what's different now? Because NASCAR's already said we're not making any changes with regard to
I think
horsepower.
NASCAR, if they're coming, I think NASCAR told them, hey, we got 2 chargers we're going to give you. You just pick who
Yeah.
you want to use them.
Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah. I mean, that could be it. So I guess we'll
But
see.
surely to God, a manufacturer's not going to come in with just 2 cars. That would be a 42 car field at that point. I don't think you're going to have 2 Dodges and 16 Chevys and 10
Yeah.
Fords and 8 Toyotas, whatever it might be. You're they'd
Yeah.
have to court a couple, probably Chevy teams, and
Honestly,
so
if
on and
if
so
I was
forth.
Dodge and I was going to come in, I would probably go grab Legacy Motor Club and Spire because you're getting people that there's a lot of talent in both sides that if I made them top tier partners, there's a lot of room to develop and do kind of like what Gibbs did back in the day when they went from Pontiac to Toyota and left Chevrolet or the GM banner uh, to go to Toyota in 2008. So I could definitely see that happening. Jimmy Johnson's the third rung on the ladder for the Toyota deal. He would become number one at or one of two at Dodge if they decide to do that and come into Cup. And then same thing for Spire. Spire has an alliance with Hendrick, but obviously you're not getting everything. They're, third or fourth down on the rung compared to, Trackhouse and Hendrick and RCR are the key tier partners. So if I'm Spire and I've spent all this money, $40 million on this charter and got investments from Gamebridge and all that stuff, then I would be looking heavily at Dodge and saying, hey, we've got young talent. We're here to build and grow. We've got McDowell. We've got Zane Smith, two-time truck champion. We've got Hocevar, who's, developing fast, is fast behind the wheel. We've got these sponsors. We got Haley. You know, we've got we've got this. We're building this thing. Come build it with us. So I think those would be two good candidates. I don't ever see I think we talked about it like Dale Jr. going to I just don't see him ever leaving GM. I mean, granted, for the right price, it could happen. I just don't see that
I'm
happen.
telling. I know it's just far fetched, but I think if that's the way he can get into the front door without spending a dime
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
get
it's
in the
entirely
cup,
possible.
I think his fans will understand. And it's not like he's driving the car; he just owns the car. So
Well, the
I
problem
don't.
there though is if he were to go to the Dodge route, he would lose all those alliances he has today with Hendrick, which there's a lot of tie-ins there from the business side of the house,
They got. He's
sponsorship.
had. He's had what 15 years
Oh, I'm not
of
saying
their
he couldn't do it.
knowledge
I'm just
that
saying
he could.
there's a lot of things that are closely tied together there for Hendrick's development
Yeah.
program, stuff that you would have to untie. Not that it
Yeah.
can't be, but it would be very messy to do that. That's why I just don't see that happening. I think they're very happy. Dale
Well,
and
I think
Jesse.
with as smart as Kelly Earnhardt is, I think she could make it happen.
Oh, for
She
sure.
is the brains over there, and I think if anybody can do it, Kelly can.
Yeah. Stop it, you little old bearded monkey. So, that's all I had. Anything else you want to talk about, buddy?
Um,
What car is that behind you on the shelf today? It's a seven, but I don't know which car.
this is stacking pennies.
Yep, that was that purple. I thought it was a purple or a black, and I couldn't tell. That's a good looking car. Nice.
Uh, Christopher got me this for Christmas 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
I was joking with him. I said, I'm not a huge Corey fan, but that car in color chrome is badass.
Next thing you know, you
And
got it.
next thing I know, it's in the mail. So
Yep, I got a stack of cars down here behind me. You can kind of see the top of them right here. All these Chastain cars that I don't know where to put of the peach and liquid color, galaxy color, standard
yeah.
color chrome, and they all look really good. They're different than Harvick's, so that's why I picked those up. They look really good.
Uh, The last thing I got is just wanting a prediction from you.
Okay.
And your prediction would be two things. How many cautions? How many natural cautions?
Okay.
And where do you think within a 5 spot radius, where do you think Zillage will finish his first road cup race?
I think Zilich is going to finish 7th
Okay.
in the cup because I mean, as good as he is, it's still like I think he's going to have a really good car. We've seen what those cars can do with SVG behind the wheel, so we know they're wind capable, and he's talented. I don't expect him to go out there and contend for the win on the first one because the Cup Garage is a different level of talent. So I think that's it. And then what was the other question?
How many natural cautions?
All right, so number of natural
Short,
caution.
short course, more laps, 90, 95 laps, I think, or something like that.
I think
Going
total.
up from 62 to 90 something.
I think we'll have short course. Hmm, I think we'll have at least 5 natural cautions.
Oh, it's pretty high.
Well, I mean, we got a softer tire, so I
Yeah.
think people are gonna you're gonna have comers and goers, so that's gonna allow for people to kind of run over each other and use people up. I think that's one piece to it. And then with that, you got, you've got SVG being in it full time for points. This is his first chance to lock in for the playoffs. This is the first race of 6 road courses where he's definitely going to be probably the car to beat. If not, he'll be close to it in that first opportunity. Same thing with McDowell. I think this is McDowell's first chance to lock in, which is why I picked him to win this coming weekend. Um, Based on how he performed at Indianapolis when they were unchecked. So uh, I don't know if that'll come to fruition or not, but I got a pretty good feeling about that. But I just feel like you got some guys who are in it that have either things to prove or you got a guy that's racing this time in SVG that before could go out there and race and just have fun and he was, be able to go all out, but it didn't really matter and he wasn't going to try and ruin anybody's day if he didn't have to. Well, now his season is dependent on his performance. That's going to change how he races.
Well,
I think he's going
another
to have
thing,
less give, and he's been very impressive at the first 2 races so far. I mean,
yeah,
he's up there at the front at Atlanta.
another thing that we haven't really talked about is when he won that race in Chicago,
Yep.
he was in the Project 91,
Yep.
which is essentially what the 87 is this weekend for
Mhm.
Zillage.
Yep.
And so this is his first road race since Chicago in the 91 that, you know, I think the first. It might be the second. I think he ran the Indy road course, but in the 91. But, last year he was running races, but he was in the 16 car or the 13 car. So those are colleagues not really that sorry, but they're
And if
not
he
the
was that
best.
close to winning in a college car,
Yeah, I think that will, that's something I didn't consider when we did our preview show.
yeah.
I was having to get off camera here because this dog wants to be touched.
Yep.
But I don't think I was considering that. But now I'm thinking about it, like, oh my God, he's going to be near unstoppable because that's what he won in. So I think, and he's got a team that's fully supported around him. That's going to be his weekly team.
Yep.
That's going to be, something to look at.
Well,
And that's why,
we all
with that
picked
being
different ones.
said, yeah, with
We
that being said, I think that Connor will finish top three. And I also think there will be three natural cautions.
okay. All right. I won't be surprised if Zilich finishes better than 7th. I feel like 7th's a reasonable first run go and start. I don't think he'll do what SVG did, at Chicago and win on his debut. But I mean, I'm not gonna say it can't happen because it did happen 2 years ago, so it is possible.
Yep.
But your road racers at the cup level are definitely better than your road racers at the Xfinity or truck level.
Yep.
Now,
And
didn't he win COTA in the trucks in his first go? Or no, that was Watkins Glen,
he
right?
won the pole. He
Yep.
probably would have won, but he overran turn one like 3 times.
All right. So But to my point, to support your argument of why he's going to finish better than mine, I just wanted to go back and think about it for a minute. He clearly had the speed and made the mistakes. Well, since then, he's had time to learn. He had learned not,
Exactly.
and he went and won at Watkins Glen in the
Yep.
debut there at Xfinity.
Got those jitters gone.
Yep, and he was in contention to win the championship decision race last year in the Xfinity Series, but he didn't make himself a part of the conversation. But he was up there when Herbst, Allgaier, Custer, and all those guys were battling out. He was up there in that top four, top five the whole time. Could have easily, I think, if he had been racing for more, probably would have pushed the issue more.
Yep.
So,
That just shows you how mature this kid is.
right. So I may end up with egg on my face, and you might be right. He might be in the top three, would be great. I mean, but I think then let's move back to last week's conversation at the Daytona 500. Pitbull's gone. If he goes out there and finishes top three in COTA and continues that kind of run throughout the year, I think Daniel seriously is going to need some new amigos because I think he's out of a ride.
Yeah, I do too. I
Yeah.
already think he's out,
Unfortunately,
like
I
I
mean
said, but
we already said that, but I just unfortunately for Daniel, and Daniel has proven he's capable and qualified, but he's very inconsistent, unfortunately.
I think the only thing Daniel's got going for him outside of the racing aspect is the sponsorship. I think, Freeway Insurance is his sponsor. You know, Tootsie's really likes him, and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, but Tootsie's is
it,
Pitbull's club. So Pitbull's
right? I
so
wasn't even think about that.
so would Tootsie still stay around? Slam, the school program that Daniel did with Pitbull, like I think the sponsorship will be a big thing, especially if Zilich brings Red Bull full time in the following year. Oh yeah, it's over. You're out, Daniel. I don't know where he goes. Maybe, Marks and Junior and if anything, I could see Suarez maybe going back down to JRM. He's he's
Um,
he's a qualified, capable guy. He's been in the Chevy wheelhouse for quite a while now. He's a former Xfinity Series champion. So if he were to lose his ride, Daniel attracts a lot of talent or a lot of sponsorship and eyes. I could see him going there. I don't know where else in the Cup Garage he would go. I don't think he's with a good team. I don't think I would want to take a step back like I did before. Um, and I don't know what seats, if any, are available at the current moment. Like front row's not getting rid of anybody. They're building for the long term. Spire's not getting rid of anybody. They're building for the long
uh,
term.
yeah, the only way you're going to get an Aspire is when McDowell retires.
Maybe he
Right,
could
in
go over
my
there and
opinion.
fill like a calling car potentially because I think AJ's days are numbered. AJ enjoys it, but AJ's at the end of his time.
Yeah,
So
he
maybe
and Denny are the same age, correct? They're both 44.
they're both in their 40s. So I mean, maybe he goes over there and fills the 16 if he gets
Yeah,
and he'd still be in Cup and in Chevy, and he would
yeah. You
Daniel
possibly
would give
bring
them a chance
Freeway
to
with
win.
him.
He
Yeah.
would. I feel like Daniel would give them just as good a chance to win
Hold on, baby.
as AJ does. So I think you're different track disciplines, but so maybe that's an option. We'll see. So.
Yeah.
All right, well that's it, bud. That's all I got.
Yep.
Great talk.
That was-
Sorry I'm
Yep.
sick. That sucks, but
You're good.
we all right, so after this, let's go back to our schedule. After this week, we finally get to real racing, as we like to call it. We start with Phoenix, Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, Darlington, Bristol. So we've got one, two, three, four, five, six good natural, or what we would consider like the bread and butter of the sport
Yep.
races in a row before we get back to a plate race or a drafting style at Dega, which is going to be warmer. So we'll see. Then we've got Texas, Kansas. Then we have, and when till we get to Mexico City, we have another one, two, three, four, five. We have five more races of the purity of the schedule before we get back to so your wild cards, if you will, your road courses and your uh drafting tracks are kind of broken up from here on out. So
I love it.
me too. I'm looking forward to what comes after COTA. I will say we talked about it last year that we said they needed to bring a better tire, a softer tire to the road courses, and that would fix it. I'm really cautiously optimistic, but I'm hoping that softer tire will fix the problem that we've had with the road courses the last couple of years, where they went from the best shows on TV. You know, when Chase made his first win, when he and Martin Truex were battling it out, when you know we were having those constant like tough Truex and Harvick and like those constant battles. I'm hoping this addresses that, that this gets us back,
Yeah, I
fixes
hope so too.
that racing. Otherwise, it's just six more races that nobody really wants to watch because more often than not, you don't get those. Granted, it makes them stand out. Like the race last year, Watkins Glen with Busher and SVG was a phenomenal finish, but and that it stands out completely. But they added all these races because they were so good to watch. So I'm hoping the tire fixes that and we get back to why they're there.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, have a good evening, buddy. And I'll
Yep,
chit
you
chat from
too.
there. I'll get this uploaded. Thanks everybody for listening, watching. If you have thoughts, opinions, by all means, leave us some comments in the area below once we post it. If you're interested in being on the pod, leave that in the comments too. We'd love to have some other people join us and give their thoughts. You know,
Yep.
this is a it says in the title, race fans only. We want fans' opinions. You know,
Mhm.
and you're a fan. So if you want to join us, we'll get you set up to come join us on a future episode. All right. Have a good one.
Not clear.
Not clear. Clear, clear, clear. Outside. Oh, he's still outside. He's out. And we're wrecking behind you. Good job.